Hi guys, it's Ryan. I'm going to be reading The Tiger's Loose from Missionary Stories with the Millers. The tiger cannot possibly escape from the basket, said the sergeant. Are you sure? Jack the missionary pilot stood beside his small plane. Pushing back his cap, he wiped a trail of sweat from his forehead and doubtfully looked at the huge wicker basket. Inside the basket, which had been made from reeds and strips of bark, crouched a fierce-looking spotted cat. The tiger was really an ocelot, a tawny South American panther. Oh, si, senor, the Peruvian soldier assured Jack. His white teeth flashed in his swarthy face as he grinned. The tiger cat will be quite safe in your plane. My basket is very strong. Jack was not enthusiastic about having a wild ocelot aboard the plane. It looked pretty mean. He was flying alone on this trip with a cargo of supplies for different mission stations. I'm already carrying 4 live chickens and 2 turtles in a box, Jack mused. This plane is turning into Noah's Ark. But Jack remembered the mission director's rule. Always cooperate with the government people whenever possible. We are in their country by permission to preach the gospel, so be courteous. Yes, I will take your tiger along and deliver her to your friend, Jack agreed. The 2 men loaded the big basket behind the back seat. The plane skimmed lightly over the river on its pontoons and rose into the air. Jack was flying one of a small fleet of missionary airplanes, which soared daily over the most savage, dangerous jungles of South America. Any mistake on his part could bring his plane crashing down to vanish in the trackless expansion of jungle where death waited in many forms. Poisonous plants, deadly snakes, man-eating fish with razor-sharp teeth, and head-hunting Indians all lurked in the thick green rainforest. Before planes came to the South American mission, the missionaries and Bible translators had needed to travel on foot through the treacherous jungle trails or by small boats on the rivers. A trip to the nearest town or doctor might take 10 or 20 days of dangerous travel. But now pilots like Jack took the same trip in an hour. This made things so much easier for the brave missionaries who were risking their lives to bring the gospel to the Indians. Jack whistled happily, thinking about this. His hands skillfully held the controls as he peered through the plexiglass windows of the cockpit. 3,000 feet below were the lush jungles of the northern Peru, with the strangely black waters of the Nene River churning through them. Suddenly, a flurry of squawking noises erupted from the seat behind Jack. It sounded just like the noises the chickens had made on his father's farm, the time a fox had crept into their henhouse late at night. Whirling around in his seat, Jack saw that the ocelot had escaped. She was climbing over the seat, yellow eyes gleaming as she hungrily looked at the chickens. Grabbing his canteen, Jack threw water at the big cat. Snarling, she slunk to the luggage compartment. In just a few moments, though, she started over the seat again. Frantic, the chickens flapped their wings and fought to free their feet from the vines that tied them together. Jack hurled his empty canteen at the cat. He missed, and the ocelot pounced, landing in the seat beside the chickens. Snapping the weed vines around their feet, the panicked chickens exploded in all directions. Their wings beat against the windows and in Jack's face as the ocelot stood up on her hind legs, sharp claws swinging for a drumstick. Feathers flew everywhere. Jack forgot all about flying the plane and began to grab the chickens, but it was no use. The ocelot soon had a chicken trapped on the floor under Jack's seat, and he could hear its sharp teeth crunching on the flesh and bones. The plane was 3,000 feet up in the air, and no help was near. What could Jack do? Would the ocelot be satisfied after a chicken dinner and sleep for a while, or would she decide to hunt for more meat? Slash! On one tawny foreleg, tipped with steely claws, shot out from under the seat towards Jack. For an instant, the ocelot's claws hooked into the pilot's pants and then tore free. Jack's pounding heart seemed to be squeezing the breath from his lungs. The tiger was hunting him. With all his might, Jack kicked back at his enemy. She yelled, a blood-curdling cry of rage that filled the small plane. Lord, what shall I do? Help me find a place to land, Jack prayed desperately. Looking out the window, he spotted a small settlement by the river below. Jack rolled down the flaps of his plane and began to circle around for a landing. Kicking the cat with his heels every time she reached for his leg, he finally got the plane down into the water. A crowd of dark-skinned men appeared as Jack taxied the plane up to the bank. "Help!" he cried through the window. "I have a loose tiger cat in here." A dozen men jumped onto the pontoons at the same time, all trying to see into the plane, which began to sink. "No!" Jack cried. "Not all at once." The men jumped off again, and their leader sent for a coil of rope. Soon the angry ocelot had been lassoed and safely tied up. Sighing with relief, Jack thanked the Peruvians. "Oh, it is nothing," the leader smilingly told Jack. "We are just so glad that you landed here. One of my men had a heart attack this morning and may die if we cannot get him to the hospital. Will you take him along to the city?" "Of course I will take him," Jack agreed. "So the Lord had a purpose in allowing the tiger cat to break loose," Jack mused as he helped lift the sick man into the airplane. God used a snarling ocelot and a scared pilot to get his plane to the right place and save this man's life. Less than 2 hours later, the sick man was safely in the hospital at Iquitos. The army officer had his ocelot, and Jack was on his way back to the mission at Yaranacocha. And that is the end. See ya.